let's get started. First, a quick overview of what this workshop is going to be. First, we're going to talk a little bit about finding your competition, what competition you should do, and also some resources so that you can stay updated with what new competitions there are, how to find new competitions, things like that. And then we're going to talk about how to get organized, form a schedule, and some study tips once you decide what competition you're going to do. And then lastly, we are going to talk about setting your intention for why are you doing this competition so that you have the best possible experience you do while you're studying and competing in this competition. So let's get into it. First, I want to introduce myself a little bit more. Hi, I'm Snehaa. I'm a freshman at UC Berkeley studying astrophysics. I was the runner-up of the 2016 Scripps National Spelling Bee, and I am the founder and CEO of the Queen Bee Project. So those are the three big things, I guess you could say, that I do. So going a little bit more into each of them. First, I love astrophysics. It's what I'm majoring in. So we can see here in the top left is a telescope that I actually just got. I'm super excited. I'm going to start using it. I volunteer at my local observatory, and what you see at the bottom right here is actually a white dwarf binary star that I am doing research on currently. So super exciting stuff. Next, the spelling bee. Big part of my life. The things you see here is when I competed in the spelling bee in middle school. These here are virtual bees that I've been pronouncing at because, now the spelling bee is online, so everything's virtual. So these are things I've judged and pronounced at. This is when I got to go on Good Day Sacramento. And this is actually the last workshop that I ran before Corona hit in person. So I'm super excited to get back to this. And lastly, the Queen Bee Project is a nonprofit that I founded. I will talk a bit more about this later at the end because it actually has to do with this workshop. But we empower girls in male-dominated fields and also prioritize mental health in academic competitions. And these are just some things that we've done. Here is a girl at the last Central Valley Spelling Bee that is wearing our Queen Bee pin. So yeah, fun stuff. That is basically me. But without further ado, let's get into the actual workshop. So first, we're going to talk about finding what competition you should do and some resources to help you get there. So first, I'm going to talk a lot about the competitions I did. So I just want to talk about that first. I did the spelling bee from kindergarten to 8th grade. So that's the biggest thing I've done so far, big part of my life. I also did the Brain Bee and the STEM Fair my junior year of high school. And I also did the Astrophysics Olympiad my junior year of high school. I did the pentathlon in middle school, and I did the decathlon my freshman year of high school. So these are the competitions that I've done. I will bring them up, so I just wanted you guys to have an idea. So why should you pick a certain competition that you want to do? And this is what I see a lot of people picking competitions based on which one is most prestigious. Going immediately for the most prestigious competitions like ISEF, for example, which is the STEM fair, the Intel Science and Engineering Fair, or going straight for the National Spelling Bee if you're in middle school, which is also an incredibly prestigious competition. But what I've learned from doing a lot of competitions is that if you go into it with the mindset that, I want to achieve this ranking in this competition, you're never going to get the most out of it. And I'm speaking from experience because that is exactly the mindset I had when I did the spelling bee. And I spent a good portion of my life thinking that way. So I definitely think that is not the way to go because the only thing you really get out of a competition are the skills and then the people that you meet, which are super, super, super important. So that is definitely the mindset with which you should go into a competition. Some reasons you should pick a certain one. First, for the experience, right? When I did the spelling bee, we get to go to DC each year and have the spelling bee. There's an after party. You get to go on ESPN and get interviewed. It's so fun, and I still miss doing that so much. And I think that's probably one of my favorite things that I got out of the spelling bee. So that's a very reasonable expectation to have when you go into a competition. Some other things are, oh wow, this sounds cool. And that's how I did the spelling bee. The brain bee. I did it my junior year of high school. And, you might think, oh, at this point, like she's applying to college, she knows what she wants to do with her life. But the Brain Bee is a neuroscience competition, and I did not have an interest in going into neuroscience as a career. And I wasn't going to apply to college with that either. But, it sounded really cool to me, and it had a format similar to the spelling bee. So I just did it for nostalgia and because it sounded super cool. Also, do you want this to be a potential career? That is a super, super good reason to do a competition. That's the reason I did the Astrophysics Olympiad, actually. It's an online test even before coronavirus hit. So it's definitely not something that people would do for the experience per se, but it was so, so cool because it was super funny story. I got an email 2 weeks before the first round of the Astrophysics Olympiad telling me, hey, there's something called the Astrophysics Olympiad. Do you want to do it? And I was like, oh, wow, this sounds so cool. I'm going into astrophysics as a career. I can do this Olympiad and like see if it's actually something I want to do. And I was super excited. And then I saw the date and it was 2 weeks later. So, I ordered a textbook online and I literally studied for 2 weeks. I went through a college textbook and it was a lot. But moral of the story was that it was super worth it because I loved it, even though it was super hectic. And yeah, so I'm really glad I did it for that reason because it told me that, yes, I would love to do this as a career. And some other reasons are obviously to get some useful skills and just to see if it's something you're interested in, right? Like if I were going to do the Brain Bee, I could have done it to see if it was a career that I was interested in going into. And, this told me that like, no, this isn't a career I'm interested in going into. And that's just as valuable as a result of saying like, yes, this is something I want to go into. So these are the main reasons you should pick a competition to do and not for the prize money or the ranking because you don't get the most out of it. And I've done that before, so you can trust me on that. Next, we have a master list of competitions and resources that I've put together for you guys. It looks a little bit different than this now. There are a bunch of competitions on there and links with like even more extensive lists. I haven't gotten around to putting whether each one is virtual or not because it's my midterms week. Bear with me. Oh, 1 second. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm gonna stop my screen sharing. There is an issue. 1 second. Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'm going to, you guys are going to get an email with this link after the workshop. Has a good list of competitions that you guys can look through, different Olympiads, hackathons, bowls, fairs, etc. And yeah, I'm going to keep updating this list, so make sure to bookmark it or have it somewhere. And last thing is that if you guys are interested in signing up for a mailing list that I am going to start soon, we're going to email out to you guys new competitions, opportunities, and like reminders when registration deadlines come up. Just drop your email in the chat. The chat gets saved, so I will have your email. So if that's something you're interested in, drop your email. And moving to the next thing. So there are different types of competitions, right? There are Olympiads, there are challenges, bees, bowls, hackathons, and fairs. So going a little bit into each of them. Olympiads start off as either individual or team. It kind of depends on the Olympiad. There are 11 major ones, but the general format of an Olympiad is that you start at your school or regional level, and then you qualify for like a state or a national round. And then through that, you qualify for the national team. Sometimes there's an actual like a camp that the top qualifiers go to. And then from there, they select the team to go to the International Olympiad, which is super, super fun. So that's how Olympiads generally work. Challenges are generally, you don't have like a local version of a challenge. It's generally like a nationwide contest that you can enter. A lot of times it's a team competition. So that's how challenges usually work. Bees, by definition, are definitely individual. That's the reason I actually did the Brain Bee, is because the format of it was super similar to the spelling bee. You go up on stage, and in the spelling bee, when you're asked a word, instead in the Brain Bee, you're asked a question about neuroscience. That's pretty much all the difference. And there's also like an MRI identification round, histology round, anatomy round, It was super fun. So that is bees. Bowls and Olympiads are slightly similar. Fairs are basically just science fairs. There are slightly different formats, but the general idea is that you complete a scientific project and you enter it into the fair, and the hierarchy of it changes, but that's the general idea. Now, hackathons are competitions that people don't do as much, but I definitely think you should. They're great, great experiences if you're interested in computer science in any way, or even if you really don't have any experience and you just want to learn a coding language. It's a great idea to enter a hackathon because you get to form teams there and you get to actually apply your code into the real world, which is super cool to see, because learning coding a lot of times can just seem like really boring or useless because you're just learning a string of commands, but seeing them applied into the real world can be super, super satisfying. So I highly recommend doing hackathons. There is also a link to a bunch of hackathons that are starting from now till the end of the year in the Google Doc that is going to get sent to you guys. So when you're deciding what specific type of competition you want to do, something to definitely consider is whether the competition is a team competition or an individual competition. So for me, I grew up doing like spelling bees and geography bees, so I'm definitely used to competing on my own and not in a team. So I was generally drawn towards individual competitions, like the Astrophysics Olympiad or the Brain Bee. But team competitions can be just as satisfying. And there's a fact that you and your entire team are there to hold each other accountable, which can actually make studying pretty easier. So it's definitely up to you personally, but those are the advantages and disadvantages of it. And lastly, there are varying formats. Like I said, in all of these competitions, the way it works, like do you start at a regional level and work your way up, or is it just one thing? All those things change, and that's definitely something you need to take into consideration when you're planning your schedule, right? If you're willing to put into like a long-term commitment for a competition, then it's a really good idea to do like an Olympiad, which is something that, starts maybe in like August or September and like goes to like April of the next year, like each level of competition. So definitely depends on your schedule. So that's something that you need to take into consideration when you're picking a competition. And last thing is don't find a competition that is, like there's a deadline in like 2 weeks, like I did for the Astrophysics Olympiad. Yeah, it was super thrilling, like I went through a college textbook in 2 weeks. It was like, whoa. But it's not the best idea because you're not going to get as much out of the material as you can. It's going to feel a lot more like a chore just memorizing it rather than actually like internalizing the material and being able to use it in the future. So don't rush. Start looking for competitions early, preferably in the summer is the best idea. And lay out a clear schedule, which we will get to later. But yeah, make sure you give yourself a good amount of time to actually get situated and start studying. So some reminders. Academic competitions are much, much different now than they were before Corona. They used to be in person, obviously, and definitely way more fun. But I just wanted to remind you guys that don't feel like because you're in Corona now, you have more free time, that you need to do like 5 competitions and do all of these things. You don't at all. No one's looking for that. The most important thing right now is that you take care of yourself and that you actually somehow manage to stay sane during all of this, because that itself is really, really hard. So don't push yourself too much. If you find something interesting and it's available virtually, which a lot of them are actually, thankfully, do it, but don't put too much pressure on yourself. If you're studying and you're like, this is just too much, I can't do it, there is absolutely nothing wrong with just stopping to study for it and maybe picking it up on a later year when all of this is over. So don't worry about that. And one more reminder is that it is quite easy to cheat in virtual competitions, but this goes back to, why are you actually doing the competition? And you're looking to gain skills. So don't look up answers as tempting as it may be, because that is not the reason that competitions exist. Last thing, it can be really hard to find competitions outside of like, the really popular Olympiads and stuff. Even I had some trouble finding competitions. For example, I got LinkedIn not too long ago, and I saw people putting a specific competition called the IAAC on their LinkedIn profiles. And I was like, what's this? And apparently it's an astrophysics and astronomy competition that you can get a certificate for when you complete. And it's available for kids under 18 and for people over 18 in 2 different categories. And I had never heard of it, me being an astrophysics major. So it's definitely really easy to miss out on some of these competitions. And the easiest way for you to stay in the loop are these 4 things that I've put here. First, get a LinkedIn. It's so useful. And what you can do is connect with people in careers that you're interested in going into. For example, if I were interested in going to neuroscience and astrophysics, I would just connect with people that are neuroscientists or astrophysicists in high school that are interested in going into that, or in college that are actually studying that. And then when you connect with these people, you automatically see their posts, or like when they add a new certification. And if they add a new award saying I was 16th place at the National Brain Bee, then you see that the National Brain Bee is something that exists. So super useful tool. Not as widely mentioned, but I highly recommend getting it. Next thing is obviously Google. There are some really useful Google tips, search tips. Try and look for the actual subject that you won the competition on in quotes. So go, for example, if you're looking for a chemistry online competition, you can do quote chemistry, close quote, open quote competition, or tournament, or bowl or fair, etc. You can do those or terms in Google searches, and make sure to specify the online term too. And the more terms you specify, the more specific your search results are going to be. So it can actually be super useful. It's going to be a lot if you don't make sure your Google search is narrowing the field down. So make sure that you specify it correctly. Next thing, for those of you in college, I highly recommend signing up for the department newsletters for the department that either you're majoring in or things you want to compete in. I'm signed up for the physics and astrophysics newsletter at Berkeley, as well as some computer science ones. And they basically email you for upcoming, there's a Berkeley physics tournament, there's hackathons. They basically email you about this, and that's the #1 best way to stay informed about college competitions, because college competitions are in fact a lot like you pick a team in your college and then you go compete at a national or international competition somewhere. So they all generally start from your college. So it's super important to stay informed there. And last thing, mailing lists. If you go to a competition and you need a reminder to go check their website a bit later, a lot of times competitions actually have a newsletter that a mailing list that you can sign up for. And when their registration deadlines open, they will automatically email you saying, hey, you can register now. And that's actually how I got the Brain Bee, I'm fairly sure. So these are the 4 best ways to find new competitions and stay in the loop. So highly recommend doing that. Cool. So that is the end of our first section. Next is studying and getting organized after you decide what competition you're going to do. So the first step is researching the competition that you picked, right? Go to their website, look for the format of their competition. Is it an exam? If so, what does that exam entail? Is it multiple choice questions? What is it on? Look at specifically the syllabus or the scope of the material that they asked their questions on. This was super useful for me, especially in the Brain Bee, because in my local Brain Bee, they only asked questions from a book called Brain Facts. And so I knew then that that was all I needed to focus on, at least until I made it to nationals, hopefully. And so that was all I put my effort into. I went through Brain Facts one page by page, and it's really useful because I don't need to worry about studying other neuroscience topics, because I know this is what I need to focus on. And competitions generally aren't going to be that limited, but knowing what the scope of the material is can help you so much, so that you don't waste your time studying things outside of what you need to know. Because as much as you are doing this for the skill, you need to make sure that you're studying efficiently. So you need to make sure to draw the balance between those 2 things. Next thing you also need to look at is the level of competition, right? How competitive is this event? How many people do it? Do you know anyone in your school that has done it? So look into things like that, and also look at, is this a regional level that I'm competing at? And then what's next? Is it at a national level? Is it a study camp? And look at the dates that get associated with that, because you want to make sure you're available during that. For example, I really wanted to do the Berkeley physics tournament, but the dates clashed a lot with my midterm dates. And me being in college and online college is super, super time consuming. And so I didn't want to put that pressure on myself, even though I want to do this so bad. So it's really important to look at all of these things. So once you do your research, the next thing to do is gather study materials. So this can actually be super fun because you're not actually studying it, you're just finding materials. And for me, that's one of the best parts of the entire process. Some super, super important tips for getting materials. For example, when I did the Brain Bee, I'm going to use this as a good example. So Brain Facts has, I believe, 16 or 17 chapters, and each chapter has a name. So I just went into Quizlet and I typed, like this chapter, Brain Bee, and there were a bunch of people that made Quizlets already for these. And a lot of them are public, so you can definitely use them to study. And that was one of the best things that I did because I used that to kind of get an overview of the subject. And then I went through Brain Facts on my own and made my own Quizlets. So Quizlet is a great, 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 great tool, especially if you're planning on doing a more popular competition like the biology Olympiad or the chemistry Olympiad, for example. There are tons of Quizlets out there that you want to use. The next thing, this probably helped me the most in my astrophysics Olympiad, and is the only reason I was able to make it to nationals after 2 weeks of studying, and that was practice exams. So oftentimes on the websites of these competitions, they're going to have previous exams or practice exams at different levels, and they are so, so, so useful. And it's really important to structure when you take these exams, right? Maybe you take one at the beginning first. This is what I do. I take a practice exam at the beginning to see how much knowledge I have, what my weak areas are, what my strong areas are. I base my studying off of that. I take one halfway through the studying, and I also take one at the end to make sure that I know everything. So practice exams are single-handedly the most useful thing for most competitions. So if you're going into a competition that has a lot of college-based material, that was also for me the Astrophysics Olympiad. The textbook that they had told us to get was actually a college astrophysics level textbook. And so what helped me a lot is I just looked at the topics that were in that textbook. And since it's college level, basically all universities are going to have, some sort of class that teaches that concept. And if you Google that specific concept, you're going to find problem sets and practice sets with solutions online at those universities. And those are really good because they convey the level of the exam super, super well. And they're obviously way, way more common and easier to find than practice exams, right? Specifically, MIT OpenCourseWare is a super, super good place to go. A lot of the problem sets there are actually really, really, really what helped me, especially for the national exam for astrophysics. So I highly recommend that again. Next thing is textbook problems, right? If you end up getting a textbook or using an online textbook when you study it, and this doesn't just go for competitions, it actually goes for like college classes once you start taking them. You're only going to get a certain amount of problems assigned to you, but do the rest. It's going to help so much. They cover the topic super, super well. And remember, it's always different than reading about a topic and studying it than doing actual practice problems and involving it. Reading is passive and solving problems is a super active process. So you need to make sure that you have a good balance of both of those. And last couple of things are ethics classes. For a lot of these competitions, they actually have super cool ethics classes that you can take. And, those are free, they're open, you can go refer back to them whenever you want. They have super good lectures, materials, so good free resource. And not just edX, there are a lot of other online learning platforms too, like Coursera, for example. And I don't know if any of you guys saw this, but Masterclass was offered at $1 for a year, I believe like a month or so ago. So if any of you guys have that, that's a great place to go to. And lastly, the trusty YouTube. You can basically find anything on there. Just search whatever concept you're having trouble with. I recommend not learning concepts using YouTube, but like reviewing concepts or like finding, if you're having trouble with like a specific part of a concept, going to YouTube to review it. So these are the best places, I'd say mostly the only places that you can find materials that are really going to help you do well in a competition. So definitely check these out, especially the practice exams on the competition's website. Okay, and this is the most important part of prepping for a competition. It is writing down your schedule. When I did the spelling bee, I didn't have that good of a schedule, and I regret that so much, but I changed that for the brain bee and the Astrophysics Olympiad, and that was the only way that actually my junior year of high school, I don't recommend doing this because it was horrible on my mental health, but I was able to manage 6 APs, the Astrophysics Olympiad, the brain bee, and the STEM fair. And I was able to only manage that many things on my plate because I scheduled it really, really well. Again, disclaimer, do not do it. It's not good on your mental health. And I don't think I got the best experience I could have out of the Astrophysics Olympiad or the brain bee because I didn't put the required time into it. But point being is that if you schedule well, you can do so many things and you can do it so efficiently. So here are things to keep in mind when you are scheduling. First, start scheduling ahead of time. You know, if you're looking for a competition in summer, right after you decide what you're going to do, start scheduling. Even if that's not when you start studying, start forming a schedule. So first thing is to schedule so that you finish well ahead of time, preferably like a month ahead of time, because invariably, no matter how organized you are, you're going to fall behind in your schedule because, you know, life happens. You go to school, you have exams, you're not feeling good one day, you want to hang out with your friends one day, which is perfectly okay, by the way. Please take breaks, have fun, live life. This is just a part of your life and not your entire life, which a lot of people, it's really easy to throw yourself into studying, especially now in quarantine that, you know, you're at home all day. But remember that this is not your entire life, it's just a part of it. You should only be spending a part of your day on it. And if that means that you should start earlier, then start earlier, but don't spend full days studying, you know? So yeah, plan to finish way, way, way ahead of time. Also, schedule out time for review. Review once or twice a week, even. The biggest mistake that people make when they study for competitions is that they don't review. You know, it's easy to like go through a set of concepts one day, and at the end, you're like, oh, sick, I remember this. And then if you go and look at it again in a couple of weeks, chances are that you are going to forget it. So you need to constantly review all the concepts, and that's so, so, so important. I have the next slide talking a little bit more about how to do this, but just keep in mind that this is one of the most important things that you need to schedule out. Next thing is to break your schedule into like sections or subtopics. So for example, when I was doing brain facts, you know, you split up your schedule into, I'm going to do this chapter at this time, or I'm going to do this section of this chapter at this time, or this subsection of a section of a chapter. As much as you want to break it down, the better it is, because you have, it's actually really good on your mental health too, because, you know, once you finish a subsection, you can celebrate, even though it's small. The fact that you scheduled it out and that you have it on your calendar makes it really nice when you finish it. You feel like you've accomplished something, which you have. So this is a really, really great way to stay on top of things. So definitely do this. And then reward yourself, guys. Once you finish going through a chapter, go out to dinner, go see a movie. Don't like make sure that studying is the only thing that you do. Like I said, it's so important to live life outside of not just studying for a competition, like, you know, academics in general. If you do something fun, just take a day off and enjoy it. As long as, you know, you follow your review schedule well, you're not going to forget anything, so you can do it. Next thing, study smart, not hard, right? Do not study, don't study things that you don't really need to, unless you find it super interesting or intriguing, then yeah, go for it, because that's the reason you're doing this competition. But point is that, you know, make sure that you schedule your study schedule super well so that you can learn concepts in the shortest amount of time. Right? Because if you don't have your review scheduled in, if you don't have breaks scheduled in, you're not going to be as efficient. You're going to have to keep reviewing things, and you're going to have to end up working harder than you really need to even get a good grasp of the material. So this again goes back to scheduling it really, really well. Next thing is making sure that your schedule is flexible. You know, like, don't be like, I'm going to do this on this day and that's going to be it. Because then, you know, if something happens, which something will happen, and you need to move things around, it's going to be really hard. So make sure that you have some amount of flexibility in your schedule, you know, or like even where you write your schedule down, make sure that it's, I recommend doing it digitally, honestly, because it's super easy to move things around rather than if you have it written down, right? Next thing is track improvement using exams. I talked about this a little bit, right? When we were talking about practice exams, but the best way to see if you have a good grasp on the material isn't just rereading the material, but actually taking practice exams, because that's what the actual competition is, you know? When you read a concept, you might actually think like, wow, I understand this super well. But when you go to solve a problem using it, you might freeze. Happens a lot. So make sure to track your improvement using exams. And last thing is to hyper schedule, you know, plan out like every subsection of every section of like every chapter of every book that you're going through. I know it seems like a lot, and it's a lot of front loading the work, but when you get to the actual studying, it's going to be seamless. It's going to be so easy. And so it's really important to just front load the work like that. It's going to be hard at first for sure, but the more scheduled you are, you know, like schedule out like every like 15-minute chunk, it's going to be way, way, way easier in the long run. So scheduling, again, I want to say this again, is the most important part. It is the key to success in an academic competition, actually. So make sure to do this right. So talking a little bit more about the review that I was saying I was going to talk more about is this spaced repetition template. So this here is the icon for Notion. Notion is the app that I basically use to run everything from, you know, my research, cataloging everything that I do, to taking notes in my classes, to managing my nonprofit tasks. I use Notion for everything. And if you're a student, it's actually free. Yes, it is free if you're a student. So uh, I really, really highly recommend getting this. And also Trello is a super good place that I use too. So check it out. It takes a couple days to get used to, but your life will actually be so much easier because it's an all-in-one productivity space, which means, you know, you can have your notes, your schedule, your brainstorming space, your mood boards, whatever you want on Notion. It's all in one place, and it makes things so much easier because you literally don't lose things. But yeah, this is a spaced repetition template that this is a bit different than when I used it for the Brain Bee, but this is an idea of what it looked like when I was using it. So what you have here is you just have different subjects. For example, in the Brain Bee, there was an anatomy section, a histology section, MRI section, and then brain facts, which was the book that I was studying. And, you know, as I went through each topic or subtopic, for example, in brain facts, as I was doing each section, you just create like a note here, a page, and if you click on it, it's an actual page. Oops. And if you click on it, it's an actual page that you can take notes in, and that the notes again are super easy to take. It also uses a language called LaTeX so that you can write your math equations for those of you that are going to do a physics Olympiad or so. So this is how I track my notes, and you also put here the date that you learned the topic, and then you say, is this is the first time that you review it, the second time that you review it, and the third time that you review it, fourth time that you review it. You need to review everything 4 times. That's the magic number. So the good thing with Notion is what it does is, like, let's say that I just learned this first and I haven't reviewed it yet. There's a formula here that tells you when your next review date should be. And, you know, if you review it the second time, it makes that review time a bit longer because you've already reviewed it once. And if you reviewed it for the fourth time, you know, it won't ask you to review again for another like month and a half. So it keeps extending. Spaced repetition is like a scientifically proven way to study. So it's super, super useful. And this calendar here, it tells you what days you have your repetitions on. So again, this template is going to be emailed to you. If you guys have Notion, all you have to do is paste this link into a page. And then if you click on it and hit, if once you paste it itself, it should look like a Notion page. If you want to create it as an actual page, you can just hit duplicate and drag it onto your sidebar, and you will have this page. So this will be emailed to you guys. Highly recommend using it. Super, super useful. Next thing is the Pomodoro method or technique, whatever you want to call it. This is the best way to study, and I have been studying since kindergarten for spelling bees competitions classes, and this works so well. So basically what the idea is that you decide on like a certain task that wants to be done. Like, I don't know, I'm going to read a paragraph, I'm going to finish 3 or 4 problems, right? You decide on a specific concrete task that needs to be done. You set your phone timer, your computer timer, try and use a computer timer. Put your phone away. It can be disrupting. Set a computer timer to 25 minutes. Let it run. The more you do this, you'll have an idea of what you can get done in 25 minutes. But just the idea that it's such a short time scale makes you so much more efficient, because you're like, oh, I'm going to be done in 25 minutes rather than I'm going to work for 2 or 3 hours straight. Just the fact that you finish this in 25 minutes makes it so much easier. It makes it feel easier. And when you're done, you take a short 5-minute break. And what I do is I've grown up listening to music while I work, because I live in a household where there's soap operas playing in the background, so I need music to tune out. But yeah, I listen to music, so I just listen to super chill music while I study. And then when you take a short 5-minute break, play some dance music or like some hype up music and just dance, get all the jitters out, have fun. And then you have all your endorphins and you feel good. And then you're ready to go again for the next 25 minutes. And for every 3 or 4 repetitions, you take a larger break, 15 to 30 minutes. So you can actually use this. And I believe I've studied for like 10, 11 hours straight using this method. And the thing is, it doesn't even feel that bad because you're only working in 25-minute chunks. And these study breaks, these 5 or like 15 to 30-minute breaks can be so effective, just because you're taking them at such a high frequency. So for those of you that, have trouble studying for like long periods of time, or even if you don't, you're going to be more efficient using this. So highly recommend this. Again, I'm pretty sure you guys have a link to this video later, but it's called the Pomodoro method. You can Google it if you need to. Step 4, find a study buddy. So when I did the Brain Bee, me and my spelling bee friends, actually a couple of us studied for the Brain Bee together. We split up the Quizlets and we shared them with each other, It's definitely cool to make the Quizlets on your own because you're reviewing the material. But if you're short on time, and even if you're not short on time, it's a really good idea to find a buddy and study together. You can hold each other accountable. You can take breaks together. You can study together. It just makes the process way more easier and way more fun. So if you don't have a friend that's already doing this competition with you, some cool ways to find people are Google previous competitors. This is how I actually found a lot of people that I reached out to asking for advice specifically on how to study. So you just Google the competition, and a lot of times, they're going to have like a past teams page or something like that. And there they're going to have the people that were in their team, either on their local website or their national website. And, if you Google the person, their Instagram or their LinkedIn are going to show up, and you can just DM them, and like, they're always going to be willing to help you. Trust me. From the fact that I've done a competition, if anyone reached out to me, or anyone that competed with me, we're always willing to help. So highly recommend doing that because, they can give you a lot of valuable insight specific to the competition that you're doing. Some other things you can do is reach out to your competition coordinators. So like if I'm doing a local competition in Sacramento, I can reach out to those people and be like, hey, are there any previous competitors that you think might be willing to mentor me, help me out? And they can, pair you with someone. And there you go, you have a buddy to help you. And the last thing you can do is search your competition on LinkedIn. Because, for example, like I said, I found this thing called the IAAC on LinkedIn. If you search that up, people with that award in their profiles are going to come up, and they've done the competition before. So it's possibly the easiest way to find people that have done a competition. So these are the 3 easiest ways. These are obviously like finding mentors, people that have done it already, or finding people that are actually going to do it with you. Easiest way to find is to find people locally that are doing it with you. So, yep. And step 5 is to just go for it, do it. You have all the planning done. Don't overthink it. You know what you're doing. It's really easy to like doubt yourself, when you're halfway through, like, oh my God, like sometimes you see other people studying in like different ways and you freeze like, oh my God, have I spent all this time doing all these things wrong? And you haven't, because you spent so much time scheduling, so much time researching the competition. That's why it's super important to get those beginning steps so that, once you go for it, the process is easy and it's enjoyable. And that's the main thing, enjoy the process as much as the outcome. You're doing this to learn, you're doing this to gain skills, like meet new people, and actually learning the topics can be just as fun as like the actual competition. So make sure to like not, like pour in work like for this one day or like this one reward, and rather just enjoy the entire process. It makes it way easier on you, like if you don't win, even if you want to win, it makes it way easier because you still enjoyed the entire process. You still made friends. So that is the mindset with which you should go into a competition. So yeah, those are my getting organized and studying tips. Last, I just want to talk about setting your intention when you go into a competition. I'm going to talk more about this in like my toxic competition workshop that I talked about earlier. Again, you can register for that in Girl Genius's link tree. But I just want to talk a little bit about my personal journey. So I did the spelling bee from kindergarten to 8th grade, right? And I grew up thinking that like all I wanted to do was win the national spelling bee because I grew up, watching the national spelling bee. I was like, oh my God, I want to win that. I want to hold the trophy. I want to see the confetti rain around me. And I grew up thinking that that's what I wanted to do. And so, when I went uh, to the actual competition in 2016. That was my last year, and I got second by missing my letter by one word. I was so crushed because, and like the day after that was the awards banquet. We got to go on stage. We got like specific speeches for us that like Dr. Bailey, the pronouncer, which we all love, got to help out with us. And there was an after party, which is the most fun thing. I went back to the spelling bee each year after that in high school to meet up with my friends, and it's the most fun thing. But the fact is that like I was not able to enjoy it the time when I was actually a finalist of the spelling bee, when I was at the peak of like my spelling career, because I couldn't even focus on it because all I could think about was like, I lost by one letter. I lost by one letter. How could I do this? And it's not the same exact experience that happened to everyone else, but very, very similar. We all went in with mindsets that we wanted to win, that we wanted to get the prize money or that we just wanted to get the trophy and like make our parents proud. And that pushed us all into this mindset where we all started to compete with each other because that's what we wanted. And that wasn't the way to go. Some of my best friends even now are friends that I made at the spelling bee, and that's because even though we were literally competing against each other in the spelling bee, there was never an actual sense of competition because, as spellers often say, you're competing against the dictionary and not against each other. And the main thing is that you're in this for the experience. So the thing that you constantly need to ask yourself is, why are you doing this? Ask yourself every day that you study, like, why exactly am I studying this? And if your answer is prize money, I want to win, or college admissions, think about it again, because that is not what it should be. The end goal is personal development, always. You're going to college so that you can get into a career that you want, so that you can develop yourself as a person. So that is your end goal. Just keep in mind always that college or winning a competition is never ever the end goal, because even if you do accomplish that, you're going to feel done at that point, and you never want to be done, because living and learning is a continuous process, and you want to make sure that you don't just set one goal with no reason behind it. So make sure to constantly ask yourself why you're doing something. And it may seem tiring at times, but constantly reminding yourself of why you do something is what is going to keep you going for long periods of time. Like for me, I have been running for the past 6 months, like online school, online college, running my nonprofit, doing research, and it's really, really hard to stay motivated, with all these things going on. Sometimes you just want to quit and like lie in bed all day because that's the way things are now. But I remind myself every day of why I'm doing this, and it's because I love hosting workshops. I love talking to you guys. I love doing research. I love running my nonprofit and helping make sure that people go into competitions with the right mindset. So that is why I do this, and that hasn't changed much, whether it's online or not. It's not as rewarding because it's online, but the reason I do it hasn't changed. And so I remind myself of that every day. And that's the only way that I've been able to work, like 12, 13-hour days each day for the past 6 months, and I'm still going strong. So do that. Don't work towards an empty goal. Work towards something that's super, super personal to you, and you will do amazing. Even if you don't win, which isn't the end goal, you're going to get the best skills out of it. You're going to get the best people out of it, and that is 100%, trust me, all that matters at the end. So last thing I want to talk about is, if any of you guys are interested in joining, helping out with my nonprofit, some things we do are we actually organize a spelling bee. We work to prioritize mental health at academic competitions. We're partnering up with a lot of competitions soon too, hopefully, to make sure that mental health is the first priority and not that so that there's not a sense of toxic competition at these competitions. And last thing is to increase accessibility of study material and remove class divisions from competitions. Because when I did the Brain Bee, I saw that study materials were not distributed evenly at all. There were people coming from regionals that, you know, had access to like actual like labs that they could go and do like anatomy at, see brain models at, and then there were people that 100% had to self-study. And so I really want to work on making sure that study resources are distributed more evenly. So if you guys are interested in this at all, I'm pretty sure you guys have my email. If not, so it'll be sent out at the end of the workshop. Email me, or you can DM me on Instagram at Snehaa Ganesh. I'm super active on there. This is my Twitter. This is my LinkedIn. If you guys want to schedule a time to talk with me, you can go to calendly.com/Sneha/chat. This link will also be sent to you in the email if you want to talk to me about anything that I wasn't able to cover in this workshop or won't cover in the toxic competitions workshop. Go ahead and schedule a time. I am definitely willing to talk to you guys. And just make sure to take it day by day, because that's all we can do now. Don't think too far ahead, even when you're scheduling. Just remember that you're going to study this topic on this day, and if you make it through the day, that is enough. That's all anyone can ask of you. That's all you should ask of yourself in such weird times. So you guys got this, and if you need any help, just reach out to me, and I am more than happy to talk to you guys. And that is the end of my workshop. I'm going to open it up to you guys for questions now. So, yep. All right. I'm going to read the chat because I did not. Ooh, emails. Cool. Okay, so someone asked me, what level did you compete at for the Astrophysics Olympiad? So I took the preliminary test, and I qualified for nationals, and then I placed 40th at nationals, I believe. The ranking system was weird though. So that's what I did for the Astrophysics Olympiad. Cool that you guys are connecting on LinkedIn, definitely. You know, if any of you guys want to do competitions together in the future, form study groups, right? It'll be super fun. Yeah, so all the slides will be on YouTube. My screen display, were you guys able to see it? I have it on full screen, so. But yeah, so 100% recommend using Notion. I love that some of you guys are using it already. It's literally a lifesaver. It is the one thing that has carried me through online college, so yeah. Yes, this video will be on Girl Genius. Yeah, so Queen Bee, we are working on the study material thing. We're actually, we're forming a Brain Bee crash course that me and a lot of other Brain Bee competitors are putting together. It'll be free and accessible online soon, hopefully before this Brain Bee competition season. So yeah. Yes, I can go back to the page where I put my info. That's my competition, not competition, my contact info. Do I know of any websites that offer free textbooks? Let me think about that. I can try and get some in the email that I sent to you guys, but the easiest way to find them is to actually look for the specific textbook that you're looking for. Look for the name of your textbook in quotes, followed by a quote PDF. You're going to find a lot of online PDFs that way. There's not specifically a good site that's legal, at least, that you're going to find textbooks at, but they're usually online versions. One good site is definitely Academia. Academia has lots of free online textbooks if you guys want that. Okay, someone asked me the experience with the STEM fair. So I did a super amateur research project on an exoplanet system. That was what I did for my research project. It was really interesting because I had never done a research project before, and I genuinely didn't have too much of a clue of what I was doing. So it was a huge learning curve. But I'm so glad I did it because it told me that, you know, even though I was clueless at the beginning, I got the hang of it, which means I was able to pick up on astrophysics research fast, and also that I loved doing it. So yeah, that was what I did for the STEM fair. I did that. So I had my Brain Bee Nationals on at like I think April 14th, and then I had my STEM fair on like the 20th, and I had prom on the same day as my STEM fair in the evening. So it was a time. Again, I wasn't able to put as much as I wanted into it because I didn't schedule it properly. You know, I didn't know that I had so much going on at that time, or else I probably wouldn't have done it. So yeah, that was the STEM fair. Let me read this. Okay, so someone's asking about AP classes. So how I got through AP classes at least. First, I want to say something about AP classes. So I believe I took 15 or 16 AP classes throughout my high school career, which I 100% do not recommend. Seriously. If there's one thing I can tell you guys about AP classes having being done with high school, that is that AP classes outside of anything you're interested in, for example, I took AP US history, and US history was something that I genuinely have no interest in. You know, it's interesting, but not enough to take an AP class because that's an extra strain. And you know, that didn't get me anywhere. I'm going to Berkeley and I get credit for AP classes, but right now I have 37 credits, which is more than I ever need because I'm planning on doing an astrophysics major, which already takes me to the unit cap. So I'm like losing like 20, close to 20 to 30 units there that I genuinely didn't even have to take in high school. The only AP classes that I actually enjoyed taking were AP Physics 1, AP Physics 2, and then AP Environmental Science really opened my eyes to all the environmental stuff that I needed to know. I love taking AP Chem, that was super great. And Calc AB and BC, obviously I needed because I'm a physics major and I needed lots of calc knowledge. So those are the only things that are actually helping me now. You know, I also took AP Lang, which was so useful in writing my college essays and in taking my SAT reading and writing. I took an SAT before I took AP Lang, and then after, and my reading score went up by almost like 60 or 70 points just because I took that class. So it might be my teacher, but either way, I highly recommend taking AP Lang. It's super good for the SAT if you guys want that. But yeah, that's the main thing I have to say about AP classes is if the subject is not something you're interested in, no matter, you know, how, oh, this is the hardest AP in my school and I want to ace it, just don't do it. It's not going to be worth your time in the end. It's going to be an extra strain on your mental health that you really don't need. So don't do that. How often did I take practice exams when I was preparing for the Astrophysics Olympiad? I actually took every single practice exam that was available in the span of 2 weeks. So at that rate, I was taking 1 to 2 every 2 days. Um, Obviously, it's different because I was running on a way shorter time scale than most of you should be because you're going to be prepared. But I recommend taking um, maybe every couple of chapters if you're able to have someone look through the practice exams and, you know, sort out the questions by like the chapter material that you learn. That's really great because you can just take the questions at the end of the chapter, but always save like 1 to 2 full practice exams for the end so that you can take it and, you know, make sure that you have um, make sure that you know all the material actually. What resources did I use to study for the brain bee? I used brain facts. That's pretty much it because that's the only study material that my bee got off from, and I'm pretty sure most regional brain bees too only ask from brain facts. Also, some ask from another book called Neuroscience for the Brain, but there's a lot of overlap, so just use those two books. That's all I used for my regional bee. For my national bee, I also used there's I forget it. I can probably send it in an email, or if you guys DM me, those of you interested in the brain bee, that there is um, it's like an online anatomy site. It's basically like a 3D model of the brain online that you can click on and like learn different portions of the brain. That was super useful. MRI and histology, again, I found them all basically on Quizlet. People remember the main advantage that we have is that people have been doing these competitions for a long time, and so they've already made study sets and they're all out there. You can find them, you know. That's your guys' superpower. So look for it on Quizlet. Was the spaced rep schedule built into Notion? It is not built into Notion, but I know a lot of people use it. I don't remember where I found it exactly, but if you copy paste the page into into Notion, it'll pop up as just a regular page, so you should be good. For those of you that use Notion, I highly recommend watching Janice Studies videos on YouTube. I'll put that in the chat too. She makes the best like study tip videos, and especially geared towards Notion, that are super, super useful if you guys want to learn more about how to use Notion for your like study schedule. So yeah, check her out. How was I able to retain all of that information? So yeah, spaced repetition. That was definitely how I was able to retain it. I didn't use spaced repetition actually in the spelling bee too much. I just got used to memorizing large amounts of material, but also main thing in the spelling bee is that you learn rules and patterns, and learning that is way easier than just memorizing large lists of words. So that goes back to my tip that you have to study smart and not hard, right? Don't memorize everything. If there's something that you can just learn a base concept for, and like you can remember a word based off of that, or I don't know, you can derive a formula based off of that concept. Learn that concept super, super firmly. And that's going to help you more because, practice exams are often going to ask you questions that you're not going to see before. Like you might have no idea how to get to using like big formulas that you've learned. But if you know the base concepts, you're going to be able to derive things and get there. So easiest way is to just remember the base things. Obviously things like brain bee, it's more memorization, but things like chemistry, physics, math, etc. Easiest ways are to remember the base concepts and then learn how to get to different places from those concepts, so that when you're on the actual exam, you can just use the concepts that you know so well because you've studied them for so long, and you can build your way up. It's way easier. And you have to retain less information, obviously. So. Did I do any other Olympiads other than astrophysics? I did the science Olympiad just through my school for a bit, but I didn't, um, I don't think I actually competed. I just helped study at the beginning and then I had to drop out because I did the astrophysics Olympiad, I think. So yeah, that's the only Olympiad I did. I did want to do more though, actually. So try them out. I like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of team competitions, and science Olympiad at my school was a team competition. So I was like, but if you guys are into that, totally do it. Best place, again, to find competitions is actually at like your local school or like your local area, right? So constantly keep an eye out for like if they send out like a district newsletter or something, they're probably going to have competitions in that. Or just in your school, usually like on like Club Rush Day or whatever, they're going to have actual clubs for these competitions, right? Like for example, when I did Academica, there was a club for Academica that you could sign up for. So keep an eye out for that. All right, good questions, guys. Um, so how did I balance my school time against developing my love for science, I guess? Um, so what I do is I make sure to like not watch TV or like shows and stuff and do my homework at the same time. It's not a good idea unless it's homework where you need to like copy down notes or like do something mindlessly. Then yeah, let some music run, let a show run and do it. But if you're actually studying, it's not a good idea to have a TV show. A lot of people actually don't do well with music because it distracts them. Like I said, have grown up listening to music while I study, so I've learned to tune it out. But how I scheduled my time, if I'm being 100% honest, I didn't schedule out a lot of time for myself to like really develop my love for astrophysics during high school. And that is something that I regret, and I'm making sure to do now. I'm making sure to watch things, videos, documentaries, even if I don't need to for a class, just because I love doing it. I've always loved doing it, but I've never prioritized it. But you need to prioritize it. It's so important because that's when you really, even aside from doing competitions, doing things like this, if they make you feel happy, then it's a thing for you. So 100% schedule out time for that. I'm not saying do that instead of going hanging out with your friends, but schedule out extra time for that. If that means, not taking AP US history, if you're a STEM person and have no interest in US history, don't do it. Don't do it. It's not going to be worth it. So. So for sounds, I honestly just let my regular music run in the background. But I also know that Spotify has some super cool playlists. The Brain Food playlist, I think it's called Brain Food. That's one of my favorites. I let that run a lot. Um, Congrats on Berkeley. Thank you. I didn't necessarily have a top choice for college. I made that conscious decision when I was applying because it's the same concept that I go in with to competitions. And it's the idea that, I don't want to have one goal that I'm working towards because, if I have one dream college and I get in, I'm going to feel like, oh, I've done it, I'm done. Or if I don't get in, I'm going to be crushed. So I didn't want to do that. I applied to a bunch of places. Berkeley is one of the best programs for astrophysics in the country, and I'm in state, so I can pay in state tuition. So just ended up being the best for me. And, I'm going there now, I'm meeting people, and I feel like I belong here. And that's the best advice I can give you guys that are applying to college right now is to just go through the process and trust that it's going to work, because I promise you it will work out in the end. I honestly never really even imagined going to Berkeley. It was not a place I was seriously considering, I suppose, when I applied to. But, when I got my choices and I looked at all of them, I was like, why did I not even consider Berkeley? And like, I actually started looking at it with like a new lens because I was never really even considering going there. And here now I am going there, having the best experience ever. And it's online and I'm already having so much fun. So, yeah, just trust the process. If you don't get into a college, it's way, way, way more likely not that you're not qualified, but rather that your personality doesn't fit there. And if your personality doesn't fit there, you're not going to be happy at that college. So it's good that they rejected you because you wouldn't have been able to get the most out of your college experience. So, yeah, how do I deal with perfectionism? We are running a little low on time, I think. I will go into that into the toxic competition workshop. That's all about perfectionism, which I have had a long struggle with. So, yeah. Can I go into what Janice Studies is? So Janice Studies is just a YouTube channel. It's a girl called Janice, and she gives you study tips. Super useful for Notion, especially. So I honestly never have felt tempted in my life to turn on TV in the background, most likely because I actually schedule out time to watch TV in the morning and at night, like half an hour to 40 minutes every morning and every night. I schedule out time to watch TV. So I actually look forward to it, and it's a really great way to start the day or wind down the day. So, um, let's see. Yeah, I DVR my favorite shows for sure. That's something that I do. Um, I think the best idea is, there's lots of good documentaries and stuff on Netflix and like streaming platforms. I generally use streaming platforms more than like cable TV, because cable TV you're more tempted to like, oh, it happens at this time, so I'm going to go watch it, rather than if it's a streaming platform, it's available to you anytime. So you have way more constraint when it comes to scheduling it around that. So. And to those of you guys, you might be confused what questions I'm answering. I'm getting sent them privately, which is why you might not be able to see. Did I do any academic summer programs in high school? No. I was aware of a lot of them, but I didn't register for any of them because summer is my time to relax and just kind of get out of the school mindset, spend more time like dreaming and like wondering like, what am I going to do, and actually having fun. So I always keep my summers free, pretty much always. This summer I worked a little bit more because I was at home and I didn't have that much time to have fun, I guess. But yeah, I try to keep my summers fun, and I recommend that even if it's not an entire summer, you do that with your like Christmas or like Thanksgiving break. That you just have, it's different than having like a downtime every day than like having an actual extended period of downtime. It can do wonders for you, and it's really good to like self-reflect on everything you've done this year. Like, oh, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? Why did I sign up for this AP class? That didn't even help me. And then, next year when you go to register for classes, to not make that mistake again. So it's hard to be that reflective, that self-reflective when you're actively working. So it's good to take some downtime. That's what I do. Cool. Any more questions? Cool. Cool. I'm getting messages. Yes, I will. You'll get if you want, I can email, if you guys are interested in like actually receiving the set of slides, I can send it to you guys outside of the video too. You can drop your email if you're interested in that. But yeah, the Google Doc will be emailed out to all of you guys. So will the space repetition template and the link to schedule a time to talk with me. So don't worry about that. You guys will get that for sure. Okay. I want to make sure, Avery, will I get a copy of this chat? I want to make sure I don't lose these emails.
Yeah, here. I'm pretty sure that you will, because I know that we'll have it. If it doesn't go to you, we'll make sure to send it to you. So just like
Okay.
that. Yes, yeah. But thanks everyone for coming. Make sure to tune in for more workshops, especially the toxic competitiveness one next week or in 2 weeks. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming, guys.